on, everybody? What's happening, everybody? What's shaking? What's doing? Welcome to episode 318 of McRae Live. The date today is Thursday, February the 27th, 2025, 7:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're talking some Gene Hackman today. The Hackman. Gene Hackman, one of the, greatest legendary actors in the history of cinema. Has passed away at the age of 95. A good long life, although he did retire from acting, on camera acting at the very least in 2004 after the comedy Welcome to Mooseport, starring him and Raymond Romano. Yeah, what's going on? But he was discovered, I'll read the article to you. Interesting, news broke late last night, early this morning. Seems sort of normal. And then as of this show at this very moment at, 10 after 7 in the, 10 after 7 in the evening Eastern Standard Time, obviously information will change. So if you're watching this 5 days from now, maybe we'll probably know more. But nonetheless, as of right now, now they're a little suspicious. Things are kind of a little strange. There's no, obvious signs of foul play, but he was discovered deceased in his home, along with his wife, who is significantly younger than him. They've been together a long time, though. He was 95. I think they've been together a while. He was 95. She was 63, I believe. So, that's a 32-year difference. Pretty crazy. And then one of their dogs was found deceased as well. Apparently, there was a couple other dogs on the property that were fine. So it's a little strange. But let me get my my specs on here. And let's go over to the other screen. And this is coming to us from Deadline. So this is, very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff indeed. Here we go. All right. We've got Gene Hackman, the Hackman. 1 second here. Let me just do this and do this, do that. All right. Deadline says Gene Hackman's death has raised enough suspicion among the Santa Fe police that they have obtained a search warrant for the Oscar winner's home after the I think that's it. His wife, Betsy, will say, non-Argentinian? I'm trying to phonetically sound that out. Anyway, his wife, Betsy, and one of their dogs were found dead last night. I think there's a couple of ways you can say that, but I'm probably way off. It's not a word I'm familiar with, funny enough. At this time, the manner and cause of death pertaining to Gene Allen Hackman, and Betsy Arakawa, passing is unknown, said the Santa Fe Sheriff's Department. Detective Roy Arndt, I guess that's it, Arndt, late Wednesday night in an affidavit submitted to the state judge just hours after the bodies were discovered in the couple's longtime New Mexico home. The affidavit believes that the affiant believes that the circumstances surrounding the death of the two deceased individuals to be suspicious enough in nature to require a thorough search and investigation because the reporting party found the front door of the residence unsecured, interesting, and opened. Okay. Opened as in unlocked or open as in like wide open. I'm not sure. Deputies observed a healthy dog running loose on the property, another healthy dog near the deceased female, a deceased dog laying 10 to 15 feet away from the deceased female, which obviously is Betsy, in a closet of the... Let me try that again. Deputies observed a healthy dog running loose on the property, another healthy dog near the deceased female, so that's Betsy, a deceased dog laying 10 to 15 feet from the deceased female in a closet of the bathroom. Okay, now we're on track. The heater being moved, the pill bottle being opened, and pills scattered next to the female. The male descendant being located in a separate room of the residence, and no obvious signs of a gas leak, the document adds. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Two men who worked on Hackman's property reported the decomposed bodies in the home on Wednesday. The 30-year-long married couple, 30 years, amazing. The 30-year-long married couple had not been seen for a few weeks, sources say. There are no indications of a home invasion or anything like that, sources tell me. But not me, but them. But the cops do believe more is going on than first assumed. At point strongly implied in the affidavit when Detective Arndt said there are no immediate signs or indications of blunt force trauma. Now, of course, they haven't done a autopsy yet. However, Affiant, I think that's how you say that. Affiant. Is seeking to seize any blunt force objects in the event there is any indication of blunt force trauma once the Office of Medical Investigations arrives on scene and conducts their initial field investigation and possible cause of death. Okay. The affidavit was approved. Hang on a sec here. I've lost my place. Oh, there we go. Was approved almost immediately by magistrate court judge. Magistrate? Is that how you say that? Magistrate? You people down there can tell me. Court Judge John Reiseneck at 9:30 p.m. local time. So, it goes on here. You are hereby commended to search the property. You are further directed to prepare a written inventory. Okay, it goes on, kind of talking about what they're going to do. The Sheriff's Department will be providing more information on the death of 95-year-old Hackman and the 63-year-old Arakawa. Later Thursday, deadline has been told. So, right now, we may have some new information. There may be new information coming out right now. I don't know. It's 7:14 here in Toronto. It may only be 5:04. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it'll be in a few hours. But it's interesting. It is interesting. On February 26, 2025, at approximately 1:45 p.m., the Santa Fe County Sheriff's deputies were dispatched to an address on Old Sunset Trail in Hyde Park, where Gene Hackman, 95, and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, 64, I thought she was 63, anyway, and a dog were found deceased. They said foul play is not suspected as a factor in those deaths at this time. However, exact cause of death has not been determined. This is an active and ongoing investigation by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. And then it goes on, of course, to talk about Hackman's career. So, really interesting. When I saw that news late last night, I thought to myself, oh, that's really sad. And it's Gene Hackman. I mean, one of the titans, one of the legendary movie stars of an era long gone. I just made a social media post actually before I went live talking about, because the Oscars are this weekend, I believe, talking about how I think it's time to give Harrison Ford an honorary Oscar. We don't need to go into all that at the moment because that's a whole other show, but because he's one of the last great real movie stars, classic movie stars from an era long gone. We don't really have movie stars anymore. We have, a lot of celebrities, a lot of people who are famous, but we live in an era now where you can fart in a jar and sell it on eBay and you're famous, and because of this, social media and the ease and access to celebrities through conventions and their social media, that mystique and that aura is gone. The aura and the era of movie stars and having the movie stars really front and center on, the pictures rather than the characters. I mean, really at the end of the day, Iron Man is bigger than Robert Downey Jr., right? And back in the old days, that's not the way it was. It was the movie stars that really drove the movies and the pictures and, the studios. And now it's all about IP and characters and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, But Gene Hackman is from that era, and he's one of the last greats. I mean, Gene Hackman, Harrison Ford, Clint Eastwood. These guys they're up there now. Harrison Ford is a bit younger. Obviously, he's 82, but still, he's up there. 83 on July 13th. But I was thinking about Gene Hackman actually not too long ago, and then I got this news, and I was like, oh, that's really shitty. And then I woke up this morning, and there was more information, and I read all about this. I'm like, oh, there's now they are a little like, it doesn't look like, but maybe something. So people are speculating, like, what do we think happened? I mean, obviously there's no photographs. We're not there. We can just go by a small paragraph of somebody describing it secondhand. And it's like, okay, so we have, the door is open, I guess, is what it said, but I'm not clear on whether the door was open or the door is open, meaning that it's unlocked, right? Because I know in law enforcement legal terms, you're supposed to be very precise and specific. So if you say the door is open, I'm going to think the door is open, not the door is unlocked. But if I say to you, hey, just go over to my place, the door is open, right? Well, what do we mean when we say that casually? Well, we mean that the door is unlocked. I mean, I'm not going to leave my door open, right? And so is that what they mean? That the door was open, or it was just unlocked, or it was ajar? I don't know. Either way, it's a little weird. You do find, I guess they had a few dogs. There was, a couple of dogs that were running around and that were, seemingly okay, maybe hungry. And then there was one dog that was deceased, lying about 15 feet away from Betsy, who was lying on the ground deceased as well. And then Gene Hackman was deceased, but he was lying, I think, in like a mud room, I heard, or something, like on another floor or at the back of the house or something. They weren't all together, which is, I don't know if that's strange. Is it strange? I don't know. Maybe it's not. Right? I mean, maybe it's not. There were pills. Do the pills have anything to do with it? Well, that's what the autopsy is for, and the toxicology report and all that kind of stuff. So they're definitely going to run through all that. And, we'll definitely find out if there was like lethal amounts of whatever those pills were in her body. Is this, I hate to say it because I'm purely speculating here. Is this a murder-suicide? Is this an accident? Is this... did Gene Hackman pass from natural cause? I mean, he's 95. He's 95 years old, right? So did he pass from natural causes? Do you know what I mean? Like, did he, I don't know. Did he pass from that? Did he, and then she just was so overwhelmed with emotion that she decided to, but then that doesn't, you can, okay, maybe, but that doesn't explain the dog, unless one of the dogs started eating the pills or something. I know, and then it just like the dog over, I don't know. It's weird. I'm sure they will probably do an autopsy on the dog. They probably would, because they were all found together. So they might want to know what caused the dog's death. How old is the dog? Why did the dog die? Why did this dog die and not the other two? Like, what's going on here, right? Like, what is this? It's very weird. So obviously I'm speculating. Who the hell knows? Maybe it was completely just, but Hackman's 95. And so, like I said, did he die? But how was he found? Was he found on the floor? Did it say that? I can't remember if it said that. Mudroom. Yeah, I had read somewhere, not in this article. There was another article I read earlier today from one of the other trades that had mentioned a mudroom. A mudroom is just that room. It's a nickname to a room that you give, it's like you have your front door and then you open it and there's like that little room and then there's like the door that leads into the house, right? So you have like that little room where you take off your boots and your shoes and all that kind of stuff. That room can often be referred to as a mudroom, right? Mud meaning where like you leave the mud from your shoes and your boots and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's weird. Like, I don't know, it's not like he was found in his bed or in his chair or, maybe he had a heart attack and fell to the ground, but then why wouldn't have Betsy called 911 or I don't know. It's a very strange thing. We can speculate till the cows come home, but we'll see what they say. They have to do an autopsy, and find out what's going on. but he was 95 and he lived a good life, and he's one of the great legendary actors. I mean, oh my God, The French Connection, The Conversation, Burn After Reading. No. Burn After Reading. Mississippi Burning, excuse me, Burn After Reading. That's a whole other thing. Mississippi Burning. Unforgiven, and, Enemy of the State, and, Welcome to Mooseport. No, but he was, a legendary actor in so many great movies. Crimson Tide. I saw Crimson Tide in the movie theater in 1995. I remember, I probably went with Bruce. I remember seeing it in 95 and loving it. Oh, it's a great movie. It's one of my favorites with him in it as well. Him and Denzel, Tony Scott directing, I believe. Just an absolute legend, believable in everything he was in. I don't think there's a movie that he was in where he wasn't, truly believable. He had one of those just, I was watching a bit of the Slaughtered Lamb episode today where they were talking about Gene Hackman, and Darren said how he just loves when he gets angry, and it's because he's believable. He's scary when he's angry, and he's a big guy. Gene Hackman's not like my size at 5'8", although that might be scary too. But he's a big dude. I don't know, is he 6'1", 6'2"? Maybe that's not big. It's tall to me. But he's a taller guy, and he's a former Marine, so he's got that pedigree in terms of he knows how to, you know what I mean? He's got that. It's just the way he gets angry and yells and screams, and he'd be a terrifying teacher, a terrifying gym teacher or something like that, He was great. He was believable in everything that he was in. And, he is, again, up there with one of the last great movie stars. And, it's an era that is long gone. I saw, I think it was Brandon Gregory had mentioned Tom Cruise as a movie star as well. And I agree. Yeah, he is. There's something about Tom Cruise, though, that isn't quite the same. There's something about he is for sure. Obviously he's a bit younger than I think he's, what is he, 64, something like that. So he's about almost 20 years younger than Harrison Ford. He is a movie star. There's no doubt about it, but there's something about Tom Cruise has a bit of that crossover. Like, he's got that movie star. I don't know. It's weird. I don't want to turn this into a whole Tom Cruise show, so I don't want to go off on a tangent. I want to stick to Hackman. But in principle, I do agree with what you're saying. But there's more to it why I don't quite feel the same way about Cruise as I do like Harrison Ford, Gene Hackman, Clint Eastwood, Robert Shaw, Roy Scheider. There's a different, and Harrison Ford became a star later too. He was about 35, 36 when he got Star Wars. And then of course he really sprung onto the scene as a movie star after Raiders. But Harrison Ford had that, has that classic, very sort of humble. I think that's what it is. I think the true classic movie stars have an aura and an of humbleness to them, and that they don't even know they're movie stars. Tom Cruise is jumping on couches and going off, conspiracy theories, and he's a Scientologist. He's a movie star, but he's a little extra. And when you think of the great classic movie stars, there's a humbleness to them. There's a reverence. There's a gravitas. There's a debonair classical sort of, you look at Sean Connery, and you look at that, like that's what I'm talking about, right? And Tom Cruise is a bit of that crossover. He was very young when he came onto the scene in the 80s. He was in his early 20s, and so he was more of very young. And then he fell off the map, for a while there too. And then he came on board again, and he's a movie star. He is. There's no doubt about it. But he's a little different. He's a little bit different than sort of. I don't quite see him the same way. In the same way as a lot of these other sort of classic movie stars. And so, but the era of movie stars is gone. It's gone because that's not what drives the movies anymore, right? What drives the movies are sequels, IPs, and characters. And, you know, that's why you see that's why the changeover rate with, you know, so many movies and characters are, you know, it's crazy. And so, but Gene Hackman is from that era, and he's one of the last great Titans, and he retired in 2004 when he was 74, I guess. And I think it's great that he lived another 21 years. Another 21 years. He had, you know, he got to live and not have anything to do with making movies and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of what Sean Connery did after the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, right? Which came out in 2003, I believe. So both Sean Connery and Gene Hackman basically retired around the same time, and both said, "Fuck it, I'm out." You know, and I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. And they went off to, you know, live out the rest of their lives, and which is amazing. But my favorite Sean Connery, my favorite Gene Hackman movies. I mean, oh my God, the original Poseidon Adventure. I mean, amazing. But I would say, like, if I had to pick a top 5, for me, it would be in no particular order, but I'll leave my favorite until the last, although they're all amazing. You know, you got to put The French Connection in there. I mean, incredible film. You've got to put, you know, Unforgiven in there. I mean, he is amazing in that movie. You've got to put Crimson Tide in there. I mean, he is amazing in that movie. You've got to put, what else? Superman, right? I mean, you got to put Superman in there as Lex Luthor, right? I mean, he's my Lex Luthor. I mean, I grew up with the Superman movies. I mean, that's who Lex Luthor is to me. When I think of Lex Luthor, I think of Gene Hackman. When I think of Superman, I think of Christopher Reeve. And, you know, that's all I had, you know, I mean, through the 80s and the 90s. And, you know, I mean, it wasn't really till 2006, really. And I didn't watch any of the shows. Like, I didn't watch Lois and Clark and Dean Cain and all that. So, yeah, Superman's always been that to me. And of course, my favorite Gene Hackman movie, I'm not saying it's his best, but it's my favorite. And it's my favorite because he's great in it. And I love the premise. It's my kind of movie. It's, you know, a cat and mouse suspense, you know, chase, a suspense cat and mouse chase on a train. 1990, Narrow Margin, a remake of a 1952 film, I believe, a noir film called The Narrow Margin. Similar sort of premise, same kind of thing, a train, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, Narrow Margin is my favorite Gene Hackman movie. Let me go over to the other screen. That's it there, Narrow Margin. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's 1990. If you haven't seen it, rent it. You can see there at the top, it's only 39 minutes. That would be with credits. So it's about a 90-minute thriller. This woman right here, whoops. Hang on a sec. Alrighty. This woman right here, played by Ann Archer. Ann Archer? I think that's her name. Rick M says, Narrow Margin is a great one. It is indeed. She plays a woman who witnesses a murder from the mob, and she goes into hiding. And Gene Hackman plays, I forget, what is he now? Is he his name's Robert Caulfield. I think he's a marshal or an attorney or something. I forget now. Anyways, he goes to find her because she's a witness to a murder, and he wants to put the guy away, right? And she's the only one that has seen it. She's the one that can do it. And I believe she's hiding out in the wilderness here in Canada, in BC, in a cabin, and he flies up in a helicopter. to get her, to convince her to come back. We'll offer you protection, all this kind of stuff. Anyways, the two mob guys are on their tail and shit hits the fan. And to get her to come back to Los Angeles, I think it is, or whatever, is not as easy as they thought it was going to be. And they have to get a train, and the next closest city is Vancouver, but it's like a couple of days away or something like that. But the two mob guys who are chasing them don't know what she looks like. They have no idea what she looks like. And so it's a really great suspense thriller that they're both on the train. The mob bosses know, or the mob bosses, the goons, we'll say, the goons know what Gene Hackman's character looks like, but they don't know what she looks like. And so that's an interesting dynamic that plays out on the train. And just watch it. I mean, it's Gene fucking Hackman in this kind of movie. He is fantastic in this movie. The premise is great. The suspense is great. Again, 1990, terrific early 90s thriller. You know, it's got a bit of that 80s vibe as well because it's 1990. But it's so good. And there's a bit of, you know, a twist in there too. And really like it a lot. It's just a great movie, period. But it is, whenever I think of Gene Hackman, this is the first movie I always think of. Not The French Connection, not Unforgiven, not the Royal, what is it, Tannenbaums or whatever. Not, you know, Superman even, not even Superman. Whenever I think of Gene Hackman, I think of this movie. And he's just great. He's great in it. He doesn't, I don't recall him yelling or screaming. I don't think there's like a typical like Crimson Tide moment. But he's just, you know, he's just pure great. Everyman Gene Hackman, Robert Caulfield. You know, he's just really, really good. And so, yeah, if you haven't seen Narrow Margin, I highly recommend it. My favorite Gene Hackman movie. Again, I'm not saying it's the best one. I'm just saying it's my favorite. But I love The French Connection, Superman, Unforgiven, you know, Crimson Tide. I mean, he's amazing. I haven't seen Crimson Tide in so long. It's been a while since I've seen it. So I think I'm going to have to, check it out again. But yeah, love it, love it, love it. And Archer had a great little run between Fatal Attraction, this Patriot Games. That's right, Patriot Games. That's right. She was she in Clear and Present Danger as well? I forgot she played Harrison Ford's wife in Patriot Games. That's right. I love Patriot Games. I actually think Patriot Games might be a little better than Clear and Present Danger, and I do like Clear and Present Danger. I saw that one in the theater too. But yeah, no, a great movie and great suspense, and it's Gene Hackman. So if you want a Gene Hackman movie to watch tonight or over the weekend, I highly recommend Narrow Margin. I think you guys will really like it. Let me see here. All right. So yeah, folks, if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on Gene Hackman. What's your favorite Gene Hackman movies? Have you ever met Gene Hackman? I don't know, out at a Sobeys or something? I don't know. What's Sobeys, Dave? Anyway, it's a grocery store here in Canada. I don't think they have them in the States. Maybe they do. Is Sobeys American? I can't remember. But anyway, just, maybe you met him at a Starbucks. You're like, Gene, Robert Caulfield. But I love the fact that he stayed out of the limelight. When he retired, and that was it. Rest in peace, Gene Hackman, and rest in peace to his wife, of course, as well, and their little dog. And I hope that whatever happened, it truly was natural. And, you know, maybe, you know, I mean, at first they thought maybe it was carbon monoxide poisoning, but as of this show right now, there's no evidence of that yet. But we'll see what the investigation reveals. We'll see what the autopsy reveals and the toxicology reports and all that kind of stuff in terms of drugs or pills in their systems, or we'll see. But they were obviously in a somewhat advanced state of decomposition because it had been, I think, a week or a few days at the very least. And by that time, yeah, your body is going to look a little bloated. You know, the gases in your body are starting to do their thing, and rigor mortis is set in. And so they were obviously, you know, in somewhat of an advanced state. And so, yeah, there's, you know, you got to weed through that issue as well. So, It's interesting to say the least, folks. Interesting to say the least. Geeked Out Turtle Fan says, Enemy of the State? What about it? What about it? Are you suggesting you didn't mention Enemy of the State? Yeah, because it's not one of my favorites. I like Enemy of the State, though. I do. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. Don't you love it when you do like a list and then somebody's like, what about this? Well, you put on your list. You missed, no, I didn't miss anything. No, but you missed, no, I didn't miss anything. No, I didn't miss anything. This is my list. You put that on your list. I'm just busting your balls. No, but Enemy of the State is a good movie. Yeah, Will Smith, 1998, I believe. All right, a couple super chats came in. Let me get them before I forget. Josh McKenna says, my favorite movie of his, and maybe one of my favorite movies in general, is Behind Enemy Lines. Love that movie, Behind Enemy Lines. Oh my God. Let me just look this up very quickly. I totally forgot about that movie. Yes. What was that? 2001, Behind Enemy Lines. I don't know if I've ever seen it. I remember the title. I recognize it. Yep. I remember it, but I don't know if I've ever seen it. But I remember the title. Fast forwards to 289, 499 says, what's up, Dave? It's a shame Gene Hackman, he was a great actor. One of my favorite movies. He's in The Quick and the Dead with Sharon Stone. Yeah, The Quick and the Dead I have not seen. But I remember it. I remember it for sure. Yep, I remember it. But yeah, he was great. The Replacements in the year 2000 with Keanu Reeves. Heartbreakers with Sigourney Weaver and Jennifer Love Hewitt and Ray Liotta. I went to see Heartbreakers, no surprise, in the movie theater when it came out. Actually, was that 2000 or 2001? Because I remember, hang on, Heartbreakers. 2001. That's what I thought. It's 2001. It came out March 23rd, 2001. I remember going to the movies to see that with, I think I went to see it with a bunch of girls, actually. I think it was, yeah, I think. Dave. But I remember, I was in my second year of college and we went over to the local movie theater at the mall and Heartbreakers was there. And I just wanted to see it because of Jennifer Love Hewitt. And, but it was a good movie. It was fun. It was a good movie. And Gene Hackman was great in it. He was great in it. I think I have Heartbreakers on VHS somewhere. Josh Stevens sends in $4.99. Thank you, Josh, and says he supposedly turned down the role of Hannibal Lecter. Thankfully, we got Hopkins. Do you think Silence of the Lambs wouldn't have been half as popular? I have not heard that. I'm not saying it's not true, but I haven't heard it. Let me see here. Do I think, you know what? I mean, listen, Anthony Hopkins, obviously, a legend, a great actor. But I think Gene Hackman would have, you know what? I think it obviously would have been different, but I mean, Gene Hackman, Jesus, that might've been something really special. Gene Hackman's good. Obviously it's difficult for us to imagine anybody else other than Anthony Hopkins, although Anthony Hopkins wasn't Hannibal Lecter in Mindhunter, right? And so, who was Hannibal Lecter? His name's escaping me. Brian Cox. That's right. Brian Cox. So, we forget that Anthony Hopkins was not the first Hannibal Lecter, but yeah, the role is so synonymous with him. But Gene Hackman, if that's true, I might have dug it. Josh says it's on the DVD commentary. There you go. Doug Dial says, Dave, you ever seen The Quick and the Dead? You've never? No, I'm not. No, I haven't. A little surprised. I always enjoyed it. A little surprised. Now, why are you surprised? Tell me why you're surprised. Tell me, what is it about me that makes you think I would have seen it? I always find that interesting when people say, I'm surprised you haven't seen that, Dave. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, tell me why. I'm just curious. Is there something in it that seems like it would be my kind of movie? I know the movie. I know of it. I know it. I remember it. I just haven't seen it. The late Ray Liotta was in Heartbreakers. He was. Yeah, that's true. He was indeed. Brandon Collins says there's a fan theory that Hackman's character in Enemy of the State is actually Harry Cowell. From The Conversation 25 years later. It makes sense. Oh, I see. Harry, is it Cowell? 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 A couple ways you could say that. The Conversation I've seen. Harrison Ford's in The Conversation, but I haven't seen The Conversation in a really long time. It's like The French Connection. I watched a lot of these movies like years ago, like when I was in high school, in college. And there's a lot of older films that I have seen that I just haven't seen in a really long time that I really want to go back and watch again, like The Conversation, like Apocalypse Now. I saw Apocalypse Now when I was in high school. I haven't seen it since. I want to go back and watch, The French Connection. I've never seen The French Connection 2, actually, so I wouldn't mind checking that out, just so I've seen them. But yeah. It's good stuff. That's interesting. Wonder if I'll feel that way too. Fast forward to 29, $1.99 says, I got my poster. Looks great. Thanks, Dave. Amazing. That's good. I'm glad to hear that people are receiving their Billy 2 posters. That's good because they did go out. We'll be sending off the hoodies and the t-shirts very soon. I just have to pick them up from Bruce. Bruce has them. He's handling a certain order. I'm handling a certain order. So I just need to pick them up. And all of the what you would call them, the custom forms. All the custom forms have been filled out, so I just need to put them in the packaging and send them off. So, but I have to go over to his place and pick them up. So they will be coming very soon. Very soon. Let me see here. Kiofi says, hey, Dave, unrelated question, but what are your thoughts on the recent report about Kathleen Kennedy stepping down as a Lucasfilm CEO? I heard that she was stepping down, and then I heard that that report was premature and that she might not be, or that she's still staying on with Disney in some sort of capacity. I'm not sure. What do I think? I think it's time. I don't think her track record has been great. And so I think it's time for maybe some new blood. Yeah. I'm probably not the right person to ask because I feel like I'm not going to give a satisfying answer either way. And because and I'm not saying you're thinking this, okay? I'm not saying that. Just generally, I know that the Star Wars fandom and is very, can be very toxic. And there's a lot of channels that dedicate their entire lives to drama and bashing Disney and woke culture, and that's how they make their living. I don't fall into that, and so I try to look at these things a bit more objectively. But I do agree that when you look at sort of the box office and where the Star Wars Lucasfilm brand is at the moment, she's had 10 years and there's been a few successes in there, and obviously from a business perspective, studios will always measure success, generally will always measure success by profits. And that's what it's all about. They have shareholders they have to appease, and that's about their bottom line, and that's what it's about. It doesn't matter if it's got 48% on Rotten Tomatoes. If it made $1.8 billion, that's a success. This is show business. And so that doesn't mean that they don't want movies to be well received. Of course you do. But at the end of the day, it is show business. And she's done well. I mean, when you look at, they have made billions of dollars, but there's been a lot of diminishing returns when it comes to the Star Wars films and the TV shows and all that kind of stuff. And obviously there is a lot of decisions that have been canceled, and there's been a lot of wishy-washy, it's been a lot of just doesn't feel like they're feels messy. There's a lot of messiness around her as the CEO. I think the thing that is, you know, and it's because usually it's coming from people that don't know. I think it's unfortunate that we live in a world where there is so much vitriol and hatred for Kathleen Kennedy, because she is one of the greatest producers in the history of Hollywood. And, you know, she's given us some of the greatest movies of our childhood, helped to produce. And, you know, most people don't really know what a producer does. And I say this, I don't say this in a pretentious way. Most people who watch these shows, watch these drama channels, you know, I've said this a million times, right? They look at these things from a fandom perspective. They don't know how movies are made. They may have a general idea. They've watched some BTS documentaries. They think they know how movies are made. They really have no idea what goes on. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just simply saying that it's so unfortunate that there is so much vitriol and hatred, pure hatred for Kathleen Kennedy. You know, but I guess that's the world, right? I mean, it's like sports, you know, if your team doesn't do well, the coach suddenly gets hatred, you know, and look at George Lucas. I mean, listen, I remember, and for whatever reason, and I think it's because most fans now don't want to admit it, but I remember I was there. I was 20 years old when The Phantom Menace came out. I was there. Now, if you were 5 years old or 7 years old or 8 years old and you loved The Phantom Menace, maybe you just weren't old enough to really understand what was going on at that time. And I say that with all due respect. But I was there, and people hated the prequel trilogy. They fucking hated it, loathed it. But Dave, I liked it. Yes, of course there were people that liked it, but generally, overall, people loathed it. They hated The Phantom Menace. They hated Attack of the Clones. Have you ever heard of the George Lucas ruined my childhood statement? Where do you think that came from? It came from that time. George Lucas ruined your childhood? Ruined it. People hated Lucas. They turned on him. It's one of the reasons he retired. There's statements and quotes from him saying, I'm paraphrasing, but he's basically saying, why the fuck should I continue to make movies when you just shit on my shit? He didn't say it like that. But that's basically what he said. Basically, right? People hate him, loathe him. If social media existed in 1999 to 1995, George Lucas would have been today, or that era's Kathleen Kennedy. I'm telling you, mark my words. It would have happened. It would have happened. But there was no Facebook, and there was no Twitter, and there was no Instagram, and there was no YouTube. And there weren't drama channels going, Kathleen Kennedy, you know, with big red eyes on thumbnails and people going like this. And, you know, there was none of that. Didn't exist. Didn't exist. But yeah, people loathed them. You know, and now, of course, people are like, oh, George Lucas, because now they have the sequel trilogy and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think the sequel trilogy is definitely not what it should have been, but it's not as bad as, you know. Anyway, I won't go on that. I will just end this little rant by saying that she's one of the greatest film producers in the history of the game. That doesn't change. She's produced, and if you know what a producer does, and you know I mean a hands-on producer. I don't mean a sit and collect a fucking check John Carpenter producer. I don't mean that. I mean an actual boots on the ground producer. And if you knew what a producer did, you'd probably have a lot more respect for Kathleen Kennedy as a film producer. She's produced and brought and helped to bring to life, along with her husband, who is what's his face, Frank Marshall, some of the greatest movies of your childhood. And so, but you know, this is a different job, and there could be a lot of bureaucratic red tape. There could be a lot of decisions that she may have wanted to make that maybe she wasn't allowed to make. Maybe she'll write a tell-all book. Maybe when she does finally leave, we'll finally find out that, oh, you know what? Kathleen Kennedy wasn't so bad. She tried to do this or tried to do that, but was met with a no, and was met with a no, and was met with a no. I mean, she has bosses. She has people she has to, you know, answer to as well. She doesn't have free reign. She's not a queen. She can't just make any decision she wants to. You know, she's the head of Lucasfilm, yes, so she has a big swing and a big pull. but that doesn't mean that she can, do anything and everything under the sun unvetted. Who knows? But yeah, obviously she's been, it's not going too well. It's not going too well and so, yeah, I think it's time for her to step down, but I don't have any, but it's probably because I'm not emotionally attached. You know what I mean? Star Wars to me, I'll be honest with you, are the movies and that's it. It's it. And I include all the movies, but that's it. I don't get into the comics. I don't get into the books. I don't get into the cartoons. I don't get into the TV shows. I just don't care. It's just, it's almost too big. That's just me. So maybe I'm just not the right fan to ask, because there are fans out there that would give you, fuck that bitch, and it's like, yeah, no, I, again, from a business perspective and show business, and you look at the starts and stops and the ups and downs, you're like, yeah, this is not, you know what I mean? It's like a coach, right? When your team doesn't do well, you fire the coach. But I have no ill will against Kathleen Kennedy. She tried it out for a long time. She had some hits. She had more misses than hits. If you look at it like sports, she did all right. She maybe got into the playoffs once or twice, never won a championship. No, she won one championship because she produced The Force Awakens. And no matter what you think about The Force Awakens is one of only like 5 or 6 movies to cross $2 billion at the worldwide box office, and is to this day still the highest grossing domestic motion picture of all time at $936 million or whatever it is. That's a championship. She won the championship. She won it. She raised the cup overhead. She won it. She won one championship, made the playoffs a couple of times, but unfortunately, she just, after that, it fell apart, and she's just had a losing season ever since, right? That's how I look at it. And I just kind of go, yeah, it's probably time now to fire the coach. And that's it. Like, I don't fucking hate Kathleen Kennedy. I'm not like, like, what are we saying now? Kathleen Kennedy ruined our childhood? Like, come on. Is it George or is it Kathleen? It's like, fuck, God, man, you're 40-year-old fucking children. Grow up. Like, Jesus Christ. It's like, fuck, like, it's not that serious. It's really not, But hey, listen, again, maybe I'm not the right person to ask because, Star Wars to me is a certain thing and not something else. But anyway, I digress. Super Chat says, if it's not too late, could you sign the Blu-ray? Yes, I could, but I would not. If I were you, I would remind me later on. Once we make an announcement that the Blu-rays have come in, send me a DM, whether it's through Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Send me a DM to remind me, because right now, like, the Blu-rays haven't even been authored yet, right? We're still in the middle of doing the BTS featurette, and then we have to do the director's commentary and want to package all that up and send it off to the company. So like, we're still a couple of months away. And so like, I'm going to forget, right? And so, because there's just so much going on, and yes, I will. But once we say like, hey, the Blu-rays have come in, we're getting ready to ship them, that's when you get in touch with me, because then I'm like, oh yeah, no problem, right? As long as you're okay with me taking the wrapper off, because otherwise I'm just going to sign the wrapper, and when you take it off, then, so as long as you're okay with that. Let me see. Okay. I think I've got all the super chats. There's only, oh, no, I didn't. Josh McKenna, $9.99. Thank you, Josh. Says, do you know Michelle Trachtenberg? I don't know her personally, but I knew of her, of course. She died this week as well, 39 years old. She did. Yeah. She, I know the face. I mean, I didn't watch Gossip Girl, and a lot of the shows she was on, I'm not the demographic for, right? And so Eurotrip, I don't know if I ever saw that. Gossip Girl, I've never seen an episode. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I did watch a bit of that because I thought Sarah Michelle Gellar was, kind of cute. So I remember watching like the first season of that because I was in high school when that came out, back in like 97 or something. I don't know if she was on it that season. If she was, I don't really remember her. When I see photos of her that have been going around online lately with her from the show, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I kind of vaguely remember that girl from Buffy maybe, but I didn't watch like every episode or every season. I just, if it was on, I'm like, oh, I'll sit and watch a half hour of this, cute girl running around killing vampires. But so I recognize her. Like when it said that she passed, I'm like, oh, I've seen her before. Like I recognize her. And that's really sad. That's really, really sad. I mean, 39 years old. I mean, Jesus, that's so young. I had read that she recently had a liver transplant. I'm hoping it's, what are you hoping for, right? There's no good way to die at 39. There's no one way would be better than the other. You're 39. I mean, no matter which way it is, it's awful. But it would be so tragic if it was, complications to the liver transplant, because you can't live without a liver, right? And, there she got a liver transplant thinking, oh, my life, I'm getting my life back. I don't have to worry anymore, and then, I hope it wasn't something like that, but again, what else would make it better? Oh, okay, it's not that, it's this, or, I don't know, but tragic indeed. Tragic indeed. Yeah. But again, I wasn't too familiar with her or her work. Based on what I'm seeing, most of her filmography is not, I'm not really the target audience for, but that doesn't matter. I mean, she's a 39-year-old actress, young, had her whole career, her whole life still ahead of her. Yeah, really tragic, really unfortunate. Let me see. Jacob Corntho says, I think people who are jumping up and down with excitement about Kennedy being fired are wildly underestimating the hand that Disney as a corporation has played in Star Wars' lack of quality. Yeah, and I guess, I understand it. I get it. When you're emotionally attached to something, and it means a lot to you. But you know what? I was thinking, and I don't know, maybe I'm going to say something that I would just get reamed out for, but I don't know if here's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if my thoughts hold weight or if they don't. Maybe they hold weight because I'm looking at this from a less emotionally charged place and a little more objectively, because I'm not caught up to the degree of fandom that a lot of these people are. But at the same time, you could say, well, because you're not caught up to that level of fandom, you don't know the nuances and the details and the mythology and the lore like we do, so you're not qualified to speak on it, right? Like, you could look at it from two points of view. But when I watched Skeleton Crew on Disney Plus, I loved it. I'm not saying it's amazing. I'm just saying I really enjoyed it. And I really liked it. And I'm almost a 46-year-old man. I grew up, I'm the target demographic. I grew up through that era. And I really liked it. And there's a lot of the Obi-Wan show and the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. And I never watched, I tried to get into it. I'm just like, I can't, I don't know. Sometimes, and I hate to say this because this is what I thought, and this is what I think is going to get me into trouble with hardcore Star Wars fans. But I sometimes feel, and hopefully people will be able to see the nuance of what I'm trying to say, but I sometimes feel that maybe some Star Wars fans are just taking this shit way too seriously. Star Wars, I don't know if Star Wars was ever meant to be as fucking serious and as adult as they want it to be. Do you know what I mean? Apparently Andor, is that the name of it? I haven't seen it. Apparently it's the best thing they've done, but they say that because, the drama and it's serious and the adult and the theme. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, maybe that's what the 5-year-old fanboys in 1984 now want in 2025 because they're 45-year-old fanboys. Do you know what I mean? So they don't want that. But but Star Wars always had a whimsical, child-friendly, not that Empire wasn't dark and didn't have dark themes. I'm just saying I'm not saying it's a kid's movie, even though George Lucas has often said, I made it for kids. It's like, yeah, I get what he's trying to say, but but there's a whimsy, you know what I mean? And it feels like a lot of Star Wars fans today just want it very serious. It's like, I don't know if Star Wars was ever meant to be that way. I don't mean, again, there's nuance here, right? I don't mean that Star Wars was meant to be like, Ace Ventura. I don't mean like that, but it feels just like that's what everybody wants now, is something so serious. Like maybe that's why The Winter Soldier was one of the best, MCU film, because it was serious. I got a serious political thriller. It was serious, and I took it fucking seriously. I was serious. Everything's so fucking serious. It's just like, and it's like, okay, all right, but is it fun? Is it fun? Does it make you smile? Does it feel fun? Is there enjoyment? Do you laugh? Do you cry? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it, I don't know. And so, like, again, maybe I'm not qualified, but I sometimes will hear these fans talk, and I'm just like, it sounds to me, you just want Saving Private Ryan Star Wars or something. Like, you just want serious, everything's so serious. I take this fucking seriously, and this is what it's about, and this is all, but it's just serious. I'm just like, was Star Wars ever meant to be this serious? I don't know. I'm not sure. But I watched, Skeleton Crew, and I get that it's like Goonies, and I get it's very child friendly, but here I am, 45 years old, and I turned, on Skeleton Crew, and it felt like Star Wars to me. I mean, somewhat. I mean, it was different, but I was like, yeah, this has that humor. It has that whimsy. It has that, somewhat serious. It's not like it's not a cartoon. Like Sesame Street. I mean, it's not, but it feels, it's not so serious. It's like, it's fucking Star Wars. And again, please don't misunderstand me. When I say it's not so serious, I don't mean it has to be jokey. But it's the way that you construct the narrative and the themes, and the way that you tell the story and the themes, and how deep you go. And sometimes I just feel that modern Star Wars fans just are so serious about this shit. And they just want, because again, the things I hear about Andor is like, it's very much like, a political thriller or something. I'm just like, really? That wouldn't... Really? Okay, I guess. But maybe it's also because all the fans that were children have now grown up, and they've grown out of that. And so they want something more mature. They want their Star Wars to be mature. And it pisses the hell out of them whenever they hear George Lucas say, oh, it was always meant to be a kid's movie. And they're always like, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't, George. It's not a kid's movie. Stop. And it's like, yeah, it kind of was. It kind of is. Go back and watch it. It kind of is, and that's not to say that it's not serious. It has serious themes, the hero's journey and evil versus good, and of course, but there's joy, it's got to have joy, you can't remove the joy, anyway, I digress. But Kathleen Kennedy, yeah, it's not just her. Of course, it's not just her, and the vitriol for her is just so sad. It's so sad. So sad. Fast Forwards 29 says, another great movie with Gene Hackman I just saw, thought it was The Firm. Yes, with Tom Cruise. Really enjoyed that movie. Yes. Yeah, again, that's another one. 1993, I think. I think he did that just after Unforgiven, if I'm not mistaken. And that's another one I haven't seen in a long time. I think I saw it in the 90s when it came out. Like, I rented it along with, was it The Client with Tommy Lee Jones? That's a good movie. The Client is a good movie. I think I rented The Client and The Firm around the same time, the mid-90s or something, and watched them both. Yeah, those are, yeah, it's a good movie. The Firm is a good movie. That's when Tom Cruise was trying to be a little more serious, when he was doing his, The Firm and A Few Good Men, and, when he was trying to be a little more serious. He's a serious actor. That's what she said. Superman the movie was one of my earliest movie-going experiences. My mom took me to see it for my 3rd birthday. That's really cool. That is really cool. And there's no doubt that you would have a memory of that because, for your 3rd birthday. Wow. So you remember that for your 3rd? I don't remember anything at 3. Hardly anything. For some reason, I thought you said 3rd grade, in the 3rd grade, because, in the 3rd grade, you'd be 9. But your 3rd birthday, wow, okay. Well, hey, that's really cool that you remember it. That's pretty awesome. Let me see here. Let me scroll over here. I'm probably getting chastised. Reese Wilson, what's going on? My brother from Down Under says it never should have went beyond Return of the Jedi. It was a wonderful as you say, whimsical fairy tale in space. It never needed to be more than a trilogy. I agree with that. I remember, I've said this before, but I remember when I found out that they were doing a new Star Wars film, right from the very beginning, I did not like the fact that they were doing a prequel. I didn't care. And this is like 18-year-old me in 1997 finding out that they're going into production on Star Wars Episode 1. I was like, why? I don't care. Like, why don't you try to do a sequel? Get Harrison Ford back. And at that time, Harrison Ford, maybe he would have been hard to get back, I don't know. But at that time, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill, that would have been amazing, because those are the characters and the actors we're emotionally attached to. Those are the people that, like, I didn't care. I don't care about how Darth Vader became Darth Vader. Who cares? It's not important. Like, we know, this is Anakin. We know. We don't need to see it. Do we really need to see it? I don't need to see it. I don't care. And so I want to know what happened next rather than what happened before. And so I was always kind of like, Phantom Menace, and then it was what it was. And I thought The Force Awakens was actually great. I really liked The Force Awakens a lot. I think it's what Star Wars needed to be at that time. And I really enjoyed it. And then everybody, for whatever reason, The Rise of Skywalker gets more hate and more loathing than The Last Jedi. And I don't quite understand it. I think and this is very not popular to say, but this is how I feel. I think The Rise of Skywalker is a better Star Wars movie than The Last Jedi, and it's not even close. I don't think The Rise of Skywalker is a very good Star Wars movie necessarily. I think it should, obviously I agree with all those that say, but it shouldn't have been this, it shouldn't have done that. How can Palpatine this? I agree with all of that. But it's light years ahead of The Last Jedi because it feels more like a Star Wars movie. That energy and that pacing and that joy, that whimsical joy was brought back, mostly thanks to J.J. Abrams. And it's too bad that J.J. didn't just do all three movies. But Rian Johnson threw out what J.J. had. He had notes, and Rian Johnson did his own thing. It was a disjointed, unplanned thing. But you don't have J.J. Abrams to blame for that. He gets so much hatred, and I don't understand, because when The Force Awakens came out, there were people that maybe thought they played it too safe. There were people that thought, but overall, generally speaking, most people were on board. Most people liked The Force Awakens because it felt like Star Wars again. Because at that time, the prequels were fucking hated. They were. Star Wars was dead. I'm telling you, Star Wars was dead. And The Force Awakens came back. And, it sort of, yes, they played it safe. Yes, we have another Death Star. I get it. But it felt like Star Wars. It went back to practical effects. We really like, these new characters. It wasn't perfect. But Star Wars was back. And we were all out of our minds excited for The Last Jedi. You remember? Don't deny it. You're lying if you are. We were all excited for The Last Jedi. It wasn't The Force Awakens that killed Star Wars. It was The Last Jedi that did it. It wasn't J.J. Abrams. It was The Last Jedi. It was after The Last Jedi came out. That's when everything went whoom. It's like, what is this? Everything you set up in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi feel like two first acts. You have The Force Awakens, and then it feels like we're beginning again with what is going on here? I don't understand this. This is not how, I've said all this before, right? And then, of course, The Rise of Skywalker comes along, and it's like, what do we? And J.J. Abrams gets so much hate for that. And it's like, well, what do you expect him to do? There's only so much he can do. And considering what he had on the table, he landed the plane. Yeah, maybe the plane, chipped a wing, but it's not what it needed to be. But, well, Rise of Skywalker feels like two movies in one. Because it is. Because they didn't want to do 9 and 10, so they wanted to combine everything into one, and they did this and blah, 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 all that kind of shit. But that fun and that joy that I felt in The Force Awakens, you can feel that in The Rise of Skywalker. It didn't end, I agree, but it should have ended like this. You shouldn't have done, I agree. But I still much prefer, I have more fun. I enjoy watching The Rise of Skywalker. I will watch The Rise of Skywalker any day of the week and twice on Sunday before I ever watch The Last Jedi again. I've tried watching, I saw The Last Jedi still to this day, is the single most disappointing movie theater going experience of my life. And I mean that. I walked out of that theater perplexed, dumbfounded. I'm like, what the hell was this? And I don't mean about fanboy expectations. I'm talking about story structure and second act. And like, what is this? This is weird. This is like, what are we doing? I don't get it. Like, what the hell is all this shit? The single most disappointing experience of my movie-going life. Still to this day. I did not feel that watching The Rise of Skywalker. Didn't feel it. I will watch The Rise of Skywalker way before I ever watch The Last Jedi again. So I understand that it didn't end the way that it should have and wanted to, but that's not J.J. Abrams, folks. J.J. Abrams laid down a pretty good foundation. You know, everybody was like, okay, yeah, again, you had people going, well, yeah, it's a little safe. Sure, I get it. You had those people. And I'm sure you had people that loathed it and thought it was crap. Okay, fine. But overall, generally speaking, people were like, oh, it's not bad. It's pretty good. It's not bad. Kind of felt it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. It made $2 billion. You do not make $2 billion unless you're getting repeat viewings, folks. You're not making over $2 billion unless people are going again and again and again. And you wouldn't go again and again if you thought it was dog shit. You know what I mean? It was not bad. People were like, this is pretty good. This kind of feels like my childhood. This feels like I kind of want to get. We were on board. And then The Last Jedi comes along. What the hell is this? You know? And then it just started to go downhill from there. It never recovered from The Last Jedi. Never. I mean, yes, you've had little bits and bobs here and there. Oh, that's a good episode. Oh, that was a good first season. Okay, fine. But you've never really, truly recovered and seen anything close to the heights of The Force Awakens. And so I don't blame JJ at all. I like JJ Abrams. I think he's a good director. I do. You know, I thought Super 8 was a really good movie. I thought Mission Impossible 3, he saved the Mission Impossible franchise. He did. Yes, it didn't make as much money as Mission Impossible 2, but that's because Mission Impossible 2 was coming off the success of Mission Impossible 1, but Mission Impossible 2 was seen as a critical and fan sort of, they weren't having, and then 3, it didn't make as much money as 2, but the critics loved it and the fans loved it, and if it wasn't for Mission Impossible 3 and J.J. Abrams' Mission Impossible 3, you probably wouldn't have the fucking Mission Impossible franchise you have now. Because of the success of Mission Impossible 3, you got Ghost Protocol. If Mission Impossible 3 had been dog shit, or even been kind of like Mission Impossible 2, do you think you would have got Ghost Protocol? Maybe not. And still to this day, Part 3 is considered one of the best in the franchise. He's not a bad director. He gets way too much hate. I don't understand the hate. I really don't. I'm not saying he's Kubrick. I'm just saying, I'm just like, what? Why is it, fuck J.J. Abrams? Fuck J.J. Abrams? What are you talking about? What about all this? J.J. gave Rian Johnson notes. He said, here's what I think here's where I'm going. And as the second man in, you're supposed to take that. If you direct a movie, you set the foundation, you set the story, and you give me notes and I go, no, I don't want to do any of this. I'm just going to do my own thing. Wait, no, I can't do that. There's a system here. There's a structure here. It doesn't just fall on JJ. It falls on Kathleen. It falls on, as some people have said, it falls on the higher ups. And so, Brandon Collins, Last Jedi is amazing. Some people do feel that. Some people love it. I didn't like it at all. And it wasn't because of fanboy expectations. It was character and story structure that did not organically fit from where you were coming from. And so if Rian Johnson had begun the trilogy Well, then he could start with his Rian Johnson thing, and then it probably would have been fine. But it didn't. It was like putting a square peg into a round hole. I don't know why we're taking the characters this way when they've been set up. I didn't believe the motivations. I didn't believe the characters would behave in the ways that they did because they were not set up to behave that way. And I'd have to watch the movie again to get specific examples. But there was a lot of that. The Last Jedi does not feel like a second act in a 3-act play. You know, there's a lot of things. And so I've never understood the hate for J.J. Abrams. And I'm not saying that you should hate Rian Johnson. I'm just simply saying that nobody thought Star Wars was dog shit and in trouble again until The Last Jedi. And don't you forget that. No, this hatred for Star Wars all of a sudden did not exist after The Force Awakens. It didn't. It only happened. And like I said, it has its fans. There are people that love The Last Jedi, and that's fair. But this new era of Star Wars hatred began with the divisiveness of The Last Jedi, not The Rise of Skywalker. Anyway. Frank, shut up. Let me see here. Josh McKenna, $9.99 says, do you like James Mangold? Apparently, he's going to direct a Star Wars movie. Apparently, I do like James Mangold. Oh, yeah. He's a great director. Great director. Apparently, he's going to, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Star Wars. I don't know who's directing what's going on with who. Who the heck knows? I have no idea. But we'll see. We'll see. That's right, Michael. Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, you know me. I go off on my tangents. I go running. Hey, I got shit I want to say. And I go running. Let me see. Scroll back here. Frank says Force ghosts are useless anyway. That's kind of true. It's kind of true in some way. It's true. Has a Force ghost ever done anything? Like, has a Force ghost ever intervened or been a part of anything? I'm not sure. Brandon Collins says, my worst movie-going experience was the time I sat behind Pee Wee Herman. Dude wouldn't sit still. That's funny. Frank says, oh, for fuck's sake. I love it. Oh, hey, I love your name's Frank, frankly speaking, Riker. Yeah, Frank, feel free to throw your link to your channel in the chat if you want. Yeah, folks, don't forget to subscribe to, Frank has his own channel as well called Frankly Speaking, where he does a show and he talks about movies and all that kind of stuff. And I think he just did one where he was trying to defend Freddy's Dead, trying to see if he could do it or something like that. So make sure you go over and subscribe. Because Frank's got some good content over there. Josh Stevens, Dave, there was a lot of hatred and Star Wars debate over the prequel trilogy well before Rian Johnson. Yes, there was. You are correct. Did you just tune in? I was talking about that earlier. Oh yeah, there was. That's sort of my point, right? Is that I'm talking about, like, when I say the new era of Star Wars. So there's the prequel era and then there's the sequel era. So you are correct. Before the that's why I said before The Force Awakens, Star Wars was dead. Nobody cared about it. People hated it. People loathed it. People loathed the prequels. And then The Force Awakens comes along and delivers a more familiar Star Wars, a more Star Wars like you remember. You know, it's that feeling again, right? That nostalgia and that feeling again. And people were on board. This is the new era. 2015 was the beginning of the new era. And there were people that didn't like it. There were people that thought, they played it safe. But overall, people loved it. Overall, generally. And that's why so many people, including myself, were so excited for The Last Jedi and what they were going to do or what they could do, where they're going to go. And after The Last Jedi, that's when things really fell apart for the modern era of Star Wars. And it's never been able to recover. Never. Frank says, appreciate it, but I'm not that egotistical. It's not egotistical to put I'm telling you to do it, Frank. I'm telling you to do it. It's not egotistical. It's okay. I'm an ass man, Brandon. Get it right. I don't know. Are you, Frank? I don't know about that, Frank. I think I've heard you talk about boobs more than I've heard you talk about asses. Ryan Oshlow says, Dave's hate for The Last Jedi is strong upon us. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it was the most disappointing movie-going experience in my life. There's no doubt about it. Byron Weaver says, Dave, will we ever see a Star Wars film that will be as good as A New Hope? Well, A New Hope is not my favorite. The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite. And yes, I think you will. Yeah, I think you will. At someday soon, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully. My fingers are crossed. My fingers are crossed. Josh Steven says, I'm surprised Dave's worst movie-going experience is The Last Jedi, not Halloween Ends. Now, Josh, you know, I liked Halloween Ends. I did. I didn't hate Halloween Ends. I didn't hate it. I think it's not a very good Halloween movie, but I didn't hate the movie. No, Halloween Ends isn't even close to my worst movie-going experience. Not even close. Have I missed? Okay, let me just see here. Have I missed any super chats or member chats or anything? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I don't believe I am. No, I don't think so. This is funny. You start talking about Star Wars and the people in the chat room go down. I think I had like 123 people in here about 20 minutes ago, and now we're down to 81. Oh, Dave's talking Star Wars. I'm out. I get it. Let me see here. What time is it? I think I just have a few. Yeah, I'll have a few more minutes. We'll go a few more minutes, then we'll call it a day. We'll call it a night. Hex says Lucasfilm cancels Star Wars movie every other week. Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? You know, there's obviously the ship is not a well-oiled machine. The ship needs to, you know, you need to move on. But I don't hate Kathleen Kennedy. I don't feel like she ruined my childhood or anything. I don't feel like anything's ruined. But again, maybe it's because I'm not, you know what I mean? I mean, when you make a living talking shit about Disney, like that's your living. That's your channel. That's what you do. You make a living talking shit about pop culture. When that's your living, that's with you all day, every day. Like that doesn't go away when you go off. That doesn't, when you're done online, that doesn't go away. You're thinking about it. You're paying attention to the news cycle. You're looking at Twitter. Like it's always like hatred is always in you. Like you're always looking for something to bitch and moan about because that's what gets the views and the likes, and the ad revenue, right? I don't know why I said it like that. The ad revenue. And so when the identity of your channel is about bitching and moaning, you don't turn that off and walk away, and like it's always sort of with you subconsciously. And so, yeah, maybe like I guess maybe these people really do feel like Kathleen Kennedy's the devil or something. But I'm just like, yeah, no, she's just a producer, one of the most successful of all time, who became a president of a studio, did the best she could, made a lot of mistakes. She won the championship one time. It was really cool, a lot of fun. And then for whatever reason, just shit hit the fan and she wasn't able to, get things going, and it was disappointing, that sucks. And, I guess we should move on, and, I wish her well. Like that's just kind of how I feel. Like I don't feel like she ruined my childhood, or like I'm not that. It just feels very extra, like really like over the top to be so invested emotionally in it. And I I'm not I don't say that to be disrespectful. I just say that it's I don't know. I guess I just don't think it's that serious. But anyway, but who am I? Who am I to tell somebody they shouldn't hate Kathleen Kennedy? Brandon Collins says Empire, New Hope, Last Jedi, Rogue One, Return of the Jedi, Force Awakens, Revenge of the Sith, Solo, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Rise of Skywalker. He's got the Rise of Skywalker. I wouldn't put the Rise of Skywalker anywhere near the bottom. I think I would probably put The Last Jedi at the bottom. Or maybe not. Maybe I'd put Attack of the Clones at the bottom. But The Last Jedi for me would be at the very, very much close to the bottom for sure. Yeah, Rise of Skywalker wouldn't put anywhere near the bottom. I don't think the Rise of Skywalker, I don't know why it gets so much hatred. I really don't. I don't think it's anywhere close to being the worst. But it also had a lot of expectations, and again, maybe it's because I'm looking at it through a bit of a different lens, but Josh Stevens says Resurrection by far, maybe talking about the worst Halloween movies. Oh yeah. Halloween Ends isn't even close to the worst Halloween movie. Not even close. Not even close. Those who say it's the worst Halloween movie, I don't know. Oh, okay. All right. I guess so. Let me see here. All movies, Star Wars. I don't think Frank's a Star Wars fan. That's probably why Frank was like, are we still talking about Star Wars? I went and took a crap and we're still talking about Star Wars. That's true. Frank, you should talk. Hey, Frank, would you rather I talk about Star Wars or Scream? Come on now, Frank. Star Wars or Scream? Star Wars or Scream? Or maybe I'll just make an entire show, Star Wars and Scream. Maybe there should be a crossover universe, Star Wars and Scream and Ghostface. Ghostface with a lightsaber? Come on, man. Come on. Chester Franklin Jr. says, No Way Out was a good movie. He was in along with Will Patton. I'm not sure. Maybe we're talking about Ends. I'm not sure. Josh Stevens says, if you need to introduce someone to Star Wars, just have them watch A New Hope, Empire, Revenge of the Sith, then Return of the Jedi. You get the gist. I would just leave Revenge of the Sith out. I would just, here are the movies, 77, 80, and 83. Go ahead. Now, the problem is that the older these movies get, the more dated they become. Now, they still look pretty good, obviously, but obviously you can tell they're older movies. And, depending on when you were born. I mean, look, there are people out there that are in their, say, late 20s, early 30s right now, where Star Wars to them are the prequels. Those are the Star Wars movies they grew up with. And that's Star Wars to them. They love them. They love them. They're head over heels for them. They love the prequels. And because they were like 7 years old when they saw Phantom Menace, you know what I mean? Or, whatever it was. And I get it. I totally understand it. Even though I was not born when the first Star Wars came out, I was born 2 years later. The first three films were the only Star Wars movies that existed when I was a young boy growing up in the 1980s. So that was Star Wars to me. That was it, and so the original trilogy will always be Star Wars to me. And yeah, but you know what? All it's going to take, and you can deny this now. It's free. You're free to deny this now, but all it's going to take is another trilogy. And I hope this doesn't happen. Okay. But I'm just saying all it would take would be another trilogy that is somehow there's more incompetence and it's even worse than the sequel trilogy. And all of a sudden we'll be looking back at the sequel trilogy going, it's not bad. It's all right. I mean, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. But you know what? There's some fun to be had. Oh, you can say, no, it's never going to. Listen, if you told me in 2005 that the prequel trilogy would be looked upon fondly and people would be apologizing to George Lucas, I'd go, shut up. Nah. Yeah, it's happening now because you have a different, I'm telling you, all it's going to take is something worse to come along and you're going to look at it and you know what? It's not that bad. It's true. I might look at The Last Jedi in 10 years, 15 years and go, you know what? It's not that bad. You might look at The Rise of Skywalker and go, yeah, it's not what we should have got. Yeah, I don't like that. But you know what? It's kind of fun. I like that scene. That's kind of cool. That's all it's going to take. That's all it's going to take because it's happened before. No, it's not going to happen. Yes, it will. I'm not saying it will. I hope it doesn't because we don't want more shitty Star Wars movies. But I'm just saying that's all it's going to take. That's all it's going to take. That's what'll happen. Oh my goodness. All right. 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes left in the show, and then we will call it a evening. We'll call it an evening. Brandon Collins says Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is by far the worst Halloween film. At least Resurrection and 5 are enjoyable. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is like the horror equivalent of a root canal with no Novocaine while listening to Bjork. Wow. Wow. It's quite a witty last sentence there. I would put Resurrection and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 as the 2 worst in the franchise. Yeah. I don't know which one is worse, but 5 is as much as I like to dump on Halloween 5, and I do it for fun. Like I do it because it's fun to do. I actually don't think Halloween 5 is the worst in the franchise. Some people might get the impression I think it is because of how much I like to rib on it and tear it a new one. But that's just because it's fun and, no, I don't think it's good. But I agree with Brandon. I mean, I might go Rob Zombie's, I don't know, I haven't seen Rob Zombie's 2 in a while, but I might go like Resurrection, Rob Zombie's 2, then Halloween 5 or something like that. Halloween Ends is not, it's not what it should have been, but I don't hate Halloween Ends. So I don't know. And I've made that very clear. Like even when you watch my review for Halloween Ends, the breakdown that I did, I mean, I did so many live shows on it. I mean, if you've watched all that, you would know that I don't hate Halloween Ends. I don't, I'm sorry if you do, but I don't think it's anywhere close to the worst in the franchise. I really don't. Reese Wilson says, I'm really not looking forward to potentially seeing what happened to Star Wars now happened to James Bond. Oh, yeah, James Bond. Yeah, Amazon MGM. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's time for something new. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, how many James Bond movies are there? 25, 30, something like that? I don't know. Do you think it's time for a James Bond series? I mean, it might seem blasphemous, but do you think it's time for like a James Bond series? And I don't mean like a series like how I mean like a real like, wow, this is a great series. Hour episodes, every episode's an hour. I don't know. Maybe it's time for something like that. Because how many more of these James Bond, I don't know. How many more can we do? Where it's kind of just the same thing again. I don't know. The first James Bond movie I ever saw in the movie theater was, well, actually, it may have been one of the early 80s ones. When I was really little, but I don't remember it. The first one I remember seeing is GoldenEye in 96, 95, 96. I remember going to the theater to see that. And I really liked it. It was actually the inspiration that Bruce and I got for making one of our home movies that we made in the 90s called Secret Agents. We made, obviously, for those who don't know, Bruce, obviously my best friend, made the Billy films with me. He works in the industry as well. And in the 90s, when we were teenagers, we made a bunch of home movies. We made a trilogy based on like the Halloween franchise. It wasn't called Halloween, it wasn't Michael Myers, but it was inspired by, the first one was called The Night He Came, which is the subtitle, which is almost which is a portion of the subtitle from Halloween, right? Which is The Night He Came Home. Our first movie was called The Night He Came. The next one was called The Night He Came Back. The third one was called The Night It Came to an End. And we made a spy movie called Secret Agents. And it was really good. It was really good. Like, because it was actually pretty good because we were like teenagers. We were like 16, 17. So it wasn't like awful. It's not like we were 10 years old. Like we knew how to shoot. We knew what we were doing. We knew how to edit. So it's a home movie, but it looks good. Like you're like, oh, this looks like these guys know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like they actually have camera angles and they've like crafted this shot, and they have some camera movement and, but it was shot on a, 8mm, high 8mm camcorder. So the production value is very home movie, very video. But yeah, it was based on, or it was inspired by GoldenEye. So kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. James Bond, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to just do a series. I don't know. They probably won't, though. They'll probably want to do theatrical. Frank says, let's get a Q series going. Let's get a Q series going. Let's get an M series going. I say we dig up what's her face and let's get an M series going. Judi Dench. She's still alive, right? I think is she still alive? The character's dead. Let's have an M spinoff. An M spinoff. Jay Ashraf says, what are your thoughts on Timothy Dalton's portrayal of James Bond? I don't really have one. I mean, obviously he just did the 2 movies there in the later half of the 80s. I don't really have one. I don't really have one. I'd have to check and watch them again. But, yeah. Let me see here. You guys. The night he came. Like, I could understand if I said, yeah, it was called The Night He Cummed All Over Her. Like, guys, come on. Come on. Like, seriously? Come on. Like the night he came. Oh, my God. Brandon Collins says, let's bring back Bronson as an old Bond who is now M. He has to go back in the field after MI6 is decimated and the new 007 is killed. Ooh, not bad, not bad. Lee the Machine Bowers has entered the room. Says, GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies is my favorite Bond films. Amazing. Brandon G says, you never try to fix what's not broken. After 70 years, the James Bond formula has never gotten stale. I don't know. Is that true? I don't think that's true. I mean, it got stale with Timothy Dalton. That's why there was largely a 6-year gap, or at least part of it. You know, I don't know. I'm going to disagree with that. I think that, you know, it's a classically proven franchise that has done very well, and it's a legendary franchise. But I don't know if I think there's been moments, obviously. It depends what we're measuring, right? Like, you know, what do we mean by stale, right? I mean, there's been movies that haven't been very good, you know? So, and I don't know. I mean, do you keep it going theatrically? I don't know. I think that to inject new life into it might be interesting, you know? I don't know. I'm not a James Bond expert, but it's interesting. Yeah, because it is. Reese Wilson says, Bronson deserved a better send-off than die. Bronson deserved a better send-off than die another day. What did I say? Bronson? I meant Brosnan is what I meant. Yeah, you could bring him back. Bring back Pierce Brosnan, not Bronson. Why did I say Bronson? I'm probably thinking of Charles Bronson. That's what I'm thinking of. All right. Well, listen, this has been a good show. Nice to hang out with you guys for a little bit. If you're watching after the fact, feel free to jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts on anything I had to say here today. But of course, specifically on the passing of Gene Hackman, the legendary actor Gene Hackman has died at the age of 95. Let me know your thoughts on that. And of course, some of your favorite Gene Hackman movies. My favorite again, is Narrow Margin from 1990. If you've never seen it, check it out. I think you'll really like it. It's a great little suspense thriller from the early 90s. And check it out if you have not seen it. Next Gen, have I seen Heart Eyes? I have not yet. I have not seen Heart Eyes or Companion yet. I still have to see them. But yeah, folks, thanks for tuning in for this episode of McRae Live. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the super chats that came in. I really appreciate them. Thank you to my moderators, of course. Thank you for doing what you do. Frank and Brandon were in here tonight. I really appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe to Frank's channel, Frankly Speaking. He's doing some great stuff over there. So yeah, have a great rest of your Thursday night, and I will talk to you all soon. All righty. In the meantime and in between time, Cheers.